Hello again, dear viewers. You caught me during my break. What? Even researchers at the SCP Foundation need a little downtime now and then. And considering they revoked my playtime privileges with the living Lego and the Nerfing gun after that unfortunate incident in the Site-19 break room, I've been downgraded to keeping myself occupied with this little rubber ball. I have a ball. Perhaps you'd like to bounce it, they say. Seems innocent enough, doesn't it? Have you learned nothing? Almost any object, even something as innocuous as a teddy bear or a plastic paddling pool, can hide secrets. Sure, any avid basketball fan will happily tell you that ball is life, but sometimes when you're dealing with anomalies, a ball can also be death. Such is the case of SCP-018, also known as the Super Ball. An anomaly so powerful that the Foundation has even used it to help recontain SCP-682 during a breach. To the untrained observer, it really isn't much to look at. A small red rubber ball around 6 centimeters in diameter produced by the Wham-O company in 1969. Yeah, we were as surprised as you to find out that good old Dr. Wondertainment had nothing to do with this little number. You might also be surprised by just how extensive the containment procedures are for SCP-018. After all, it's rare that a completely non-sentient anomaly makes its way into the Euclid Class. This little rubber ball is kept in a specially made titanium alloy metal restraint, submerged in a dense polyethylene holding tank, filled with a special endothermic compound that draws the kinetic energy out of its surroundings. Anyone entering the chamber needs to wear a unique kind of reinforced plate armor, and if SCP-018 ever manages to escape its containment tank, nearby personnel are advised to treat it as they would an active shooter situation. Lock yourself in a nearby room, duck down below any cover you can find, and wait for armed containment units to show up and take control of the situation. At this point, you probably have a lot of questions. Chief among them being, why is this children's toy being given more security precautions than most serial killers? The ball was first discovered when a cleaning and disposal company was hired to empty out an old Wham-O warehouse of some defunct merchandise. One of the movers, Roy Fischler, embraced his inner child when he saw a red rubber ball sitting among all the dusty boxes of expired silly putty and broken remote control robots. He thought to himself, what's the harm in having a little fun here? It's all going in the trash anyway. This would prove to be a terrible mistake for all involved. The anomalous property of SCP-018 is the fact that it's able to bounce at 200% efficiency every time it's bounced, increasing at an exponential rate with each bounce unless it's stopped by some equivalent force. So when Roy decided to toss that little red ball onto the ground, he unleashed a destructive force into that warehouse that was more powerful than he could ever have imagined. With every bounce, the ball increased its height and speed, ricocheting across the floor, walls, and ceiling like a bullet run amok. And it was only just getting started. The workers hit the deck as the item that would later be dubbed SCP-018 decided to put the ball in ballistic. It smashed light fixtures, knocked over piles of boxes, smashed through forklifts. When one worker tried to catch it, it left a red-hot ball-shaped hole in the middle of his palm. It wasn't long before the ball had built up such speed that the warehouse could no longer contain it. It blasted out of the wall and rocketed into a nearby city, ready to cause more abject chaos wherever it went. Windows were shattered, streetlights were annihilated, cars crashed. Thankfully, no humans were killed by the rampaging rubber menace, but in total 5 people were injured, and one unfortunate pigeon was utterly obliterated on impact. It went on for several days, with the ball reaching over 100 kilometers per hour at several points, before finally coming to a rest at a nearby lake, at which point it was retrieved by Foundation personnel. There were 2 silver linings to this incredibly strange anomalous incident. The first was, as previously alluded to, nobody actually died. The second was that due to the incredible speeds at which SCP-018 moved, none of the civilian witnesses had any idea what they'd just encountered. As far as anomalous discoveries go, this was pretty much as close to a win as you can get. But for one ambitious researcher, it was far more than just a pleasingly non-violent initial containment story. It was a doorway to improving the Foundation's technology as a whole. Meet Dr. Brian Carella. He's what you might call a maverick. a blue sky thinker, always on his grind. The cornerstone of Dr. Corella's philosophy was that the Foundation should be making more active use of its benign anomalies to help track down and contain their more ornery foes. While everyone else around him seemed to only see a little rubber nuisance that was better locked away, Dr. Corella saw the immense potential in SCP-018, namely in providing a vital enhancement to another piece of Foundation technology, the SCP-A5 armor. It goes without saying that working for the SCP Foundation is an incredibly dangerous job, especially if you're part of one of the Foundation's myriad of mobile task forces. The hunt for anomalies can lead to all kinds of strange and inhospitable terrains. Before it was contained, SCP-096 was famously captured on an icy frozen tundra on top of a bleak mountain. Because of incidents like this, the Foundation had first invested money in the SCP-A5 tactical armor suit. Think of them like the Foundation's answer to the Iron Man suit. However, when dressed in several hundred pounds of reinforced metal, something important suffers along the way: mobility. It isn't exactly easy to lug all that equipment around, and when an anomaly is heading for the hills at high speeds, being well defended doesn't count for much if you're already 10 miles behind the target in pursuit. This, in Dr. Corella's mind, was exactly where SCP-018 came into play. If that little red ball was built into the foot of an SCP-A5 armor suit, it could be used to bounce the operative wearing it to tremendous heights. This would allow them to not only give chase against fast-moving anomalies, but also cover difficult terrain and even scale great heights in a mere instant. But it wasn't just an increase to mobility that SCP-018 integration offered to the SCP-A5 suit. Picture this. With SCP-018 fused to the sole of the suit's reinforced metal foot, lending it 200% bouncing efficiency, it could unleash a deadly, concrete-shattering kick. The kind of thing that would leave you singing a falsetto for the rest of your life if you were lucky enough to survive it, if you know what I mean. To Dr. Corella, it was a match made in heaven. It could increase both the mobility and combat effectiveness of the suits by a considerable margin. And seeing as SCP-018 literally didn't have a mind of its own, there was no way it could suddenly go rogue during a mission and compromise everything, just as Abel had done during his stint as a mobile task force operator, before they ran out of targets for him and he started slaughtering his own comrades. Dr. Corella was so confident in the efficacy of this idea, he contacted the O5 Council personally to request approval for this little pet project. This approval was granted on a purely experimental basis. The technology would have to prove itself before being put into common use. It wasn't exactly what Corella wanted to hear, but it was a step in the right direction. He just needed the perfect opportunity to put them to the test. And then, it came. SCP-682, the infamous Hard To Destroy Reptile, breached containment. It somehow adapted a cloaking ability and escaped further from the site it was being held at than ever before. The next time it was spotted was over 2 weeks later, causing pandemonium in the Amazon rainforest, devouring tribesmen and wreaking havoc on the local ecosystem. They needed to get on the scene fast and put that monster down before the damage it caused was irreparable, and news of the beast in the Amazon leaked out into the local area. And thankfully, Dr. Corella had just the tool for the job. Field Agent Hammersmith was fitted with an SCP-A5 suit, complete with the SCP-018 enhancement in his dominant right leg. He was dispatched, and immediately the augmented suit began to show its efficacy. Agent Hammersmith bounded above the tree line at incredible speeds, using the HUD in the suit's mask to track the heat signature of SCP-682 moving among the trees below him. He'd been able to bind a tracking collar to the beast's neck during an earlier engagement, but now the true battle was on. His heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through his veins, but he'd been assured that even 682 would have a hard time tearing through his suit's armor. A commander directing him through an earpiece told him that now was the time to engage, before 682 detected his presence and began developing countermeasures. Dr. Corella was watching a live feed from the control room, confident that his 018 augmented suit would do the job. Following his orders to the letter, Hammersmith descended down onto 682 from above. However, before he could make contact, the reptile swiped him with its tail, sending his body sailing into a nearby tree. However, the suit stood firm. He felt the impact, but the actual damage was minimal. Now it was time for him to face off against the beast, one-on-one. He didn't have time to be afraid. As the beast descended upon him, fangs bared, he gave it a swift kick to the bottom jaw, tearing off half of its face. But anyone who knows SCP-682 would tell you that simply removing its bottom jaw wouldn't even slow 682 down. It was relentless, attacking Hammersmith with its fangs and jaws. It tore deep ruts into the suit's metal, but the suit was still managing to keep its occupants safe. Then Hammersmith struck back. Kick after kick, augmented by the 200% power of the Super Ball, slicing huge chunks from the reptile's body. He kicked in its chest, kicked off its limbs, and with a final mighty kick, even managed to bisect the beast in the middle. Of course, even that wouldn't keep it down for long, but with the hum of evacuation and containment helicopters rapidly approaching, Hammersmith breathed a sigh of relief. Back in the control room, everyone celebrated. Dr. Corella most of all, vindicated in his belief that SCP-018 could save the day. And then Agent Hammersmith, without even thinking, rested his right foot on the floor just that little bit too firmly. The sudden bounce set Hammersmith a mile into the air. His Foundation-trained composure evaporated. All he could do was scream as he blasted up into the clouds, then began to plummet. Back in the control room, everyone could see a live feed of Agent Hammersmith hurtling into a nearby lake and landing with an epic splash. While the regenerating remains of SCP-682 were contained and brought back into the nearest containment site, another team was sent in to retrieve the heavily injured Agent Hammersmith. His medical examination afterward revealed that he'd suffered 2 broken legs, 7 broken ribs, a missing arm, and a skull fracture. If he hadn't been wearing that suit, his mangled remains probably would have been devoured by the local piranhas by now. But despite that minor hiccup in the plan, Dr. Corella was still delighted with the results and immensely proud of the little red ball that could. In his closing remarks on the incident, he appended a final note to the SCP-018 file reading, "Don't worry, it's fixed, but I have some more ideas. If I can be granted the use of some water from SCP-006 as well as some other SCPs, I can deliver you a set of SCP-A5 armor and an agent that can capture any, if not all, rogue or unattained SCPs. All I'm waiting on is your approval. Now go check out why everyone wants to eat this corpse, SCP-1176, and SCP-1025 Encyclopedia of Common Diseases for more anomalous objects that are full of surprises."